a little rare midweek treat Wednesday afternoon with our guy Tom E. Curran, NBC Sports boss, and your friend and mine. Tom, today the goal is simple, and I appreciate you taking some time here today. I want to get people's feet on the ground. I think you can guess what I mean by that, but we haven't talked about it. So what do I mean, you think?
I think, just because you sent me a rundown, you mean, okay, the people who are blasted off with irritation and up in the clouds right now, trying to tamp them back down in their lack of, in their irritation. And honestly, what I've defined it as when I was talking to Phil Perry earlier today was alienation. I think fans and media both are feeling alienated from the team they grew to love because it's not what they recognize. And there's dysfunction and instability that they have not witnessed and chose to ignore perhaps previously that is in their face every Sunday.
I think that's well put. I would say too, because I think the notion of getting people's feet on the ground and calming them down, some will hear is like, oh, let's just put a positive spin on it. Let's hug it out. Let's talk about all the good stuff. That's not what we're here to do, though. But I think because you have a season like this, playoffs are out of the picture. It's been the same old story. Drake good, team bad. Christian Gonzalez generally good as well. The speculation kind of takes us off our feet. What could be? What might happen next? How far away that is? And I think there's a space for that, obviously, in TV and radio and all the different places you are, and I visit sometimes. But in getting people's feet on the ground, I want to start with some hard reporting. This was from Diana Rossini from The Athletic over the weekend about Jerod Mayo. Quote, while there hasn't been a public vote of confidence for the head coach from the Kraft family, Patriots leadership is standing by Mayo. Just as discussions about the next hiring cycle heat up, team owner Robert Kraft has privately assured those close to him that he's committed to giving his first-year head coach the time and resources he needs to grow into that role. Now, that was before the Arizona game, which has only inspired more speculation, terrible performance, all the stuff you just mentioned about being alienated. And I think you and I agree, it is highly unlikely Jerod is done after the season, right?
Yeah, I would echo exactly what Diana said and amplify it by saying that the questions to Mayo posed, I think, are so far prior to last week's speculation and Sunday's result. It was so far off the radar, given everything that we knew about the landscape entering the year, that I think it was unexpected to even have the conversation, because it was expressed as he got to the first tee. This is a breakfast ball. Okay, I'm going to hit another one after this. And that's been the case. And it's as if people wonder if the breakfast ball is going to be revoked before it's landed, even though it looks like it's heading for the woods. So to me, that's why I think there's been hesitancy. But talking to people, there was no flinching in the notion that Jerod would be back for a second year. And that's, recent conversations as well.
Yeah. And look, I want to acknowledge that sometimes seismic events, however unlikely, are still very much worth discussing, because if there's a hurricane headed for us anytime, I want to know about it so I can board up my apartment or just get the hell out of town. So even in the remote possibility that Jerod could be gone after the season, to an extent, there is an idea that this is worth discussing, because that would be a seismic event. A handpicked coach who had been in the wings for 4 years, whether he knew it or not, and did obviously for the last one, now fired suddenly after year one. What happened? What's going on? But I would ask you this question, because people like you and I, reporters who are in the TV podcast space, not the talk radio folks who can talk about whatever they want, certainly do, facts or no facts. If we're giving this too much oxygen, this whole notion, as unlikely as it is and how seismic it would be.
Perhaps in terms of the level of urgency people feel. Look, if he's not going to be removed, the conversation does follow as to, well, should he be? And I think basically, if you're a fan, you're a fanatic. That's what it's short for. And you're going to say, yeah, because you're not going to go through a whole nuanced take. But you have to follow all the breadcrumbs that landed the Patriots where they are right now, where you're watching a product that's 3-11 and comes off a game in which they had singular mistakes that cost them the game, again, that were the same as they've been making. And the head coach, again, had a difficult time at the podium making a comment that presented accurately the way he feels, or presented control. So, yeah, it's worth the conversation. But when you follow the breadcrumbs, why are they here? Because they had the greatest coach of all time and the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. Following along, they showed signs of life 3 years ago in 21. Then they face planted in 22. They said, you better friggin' be better in 23. They weren't. And they never wanted to fire the guy. So when they fired him, instead of taking instead of taking a sweeping look at their own organization, they said, you know what, we're just going to pull this guy out of here, and then we're going to look at everything and make a decision. Is that the right way to go about it? I think in hindsight, it certainly argues for they maybe should have vetted it more stridently, but they didn't expect Bill to face plant. Well, once Bill face planted, they're there. So are we giving it too much oxygen? No, because I do think we need to revisit the why of it. And too often people are not looking at the why of it. So why was Jerod Mayo guaranteed the job? Because the Patriots wanted continuity. Well, why'd they want continuity? Because they never thought that Bill would go 4-13 last year. Should they pull the plug? Should they have a football overlord? Did they make a mistake? I think all of those things are absolutely worth the conversation. Huh?
You can swear.
Well, there's the F and the U at least. They're worth a conversation, but it's hard when it's sports for people to remain unemotional. And there is a tendency, at least within the media, to, oh, so 10-2 said this. Well, I have to dial it up here to 2-6. And 2-6 said that. I gotta dial it up here. And early edition said this. After 2-6, let's dial it up some more. And the next thing you know, everything sucks and everything's an embarrassment.
Right. It's a negative feedback loop, which again, the starting point in all of this, even if the football generally has become secondary to what Jerod does or doesn't say at the podium, is the football games. Like, had they won in Arizona, something I suggested, I don't know if you and I were doing TV at the time, is I can't shake it out of my brain that if they just win one game, all of this goes away, because that pulls the plug on whatever's underneath the mushroom cloud. It puts everything back together. You match Bill's record from a year ago. Okay. You have another upset win. It's only now 3 games left. It would be 2 if they won't upset the Bills on Sunday. That hasn't been the case. So the mushroom cloud glows, not only because of the media aspect of it, but also just because the football has been bad. Like, that was, as many people have put, even Mike Reese, an unacceptable performance on Sunday. You mentioned a live and people overlooking that. Like, is there anything, in your opinion, as we kind of survey the whole landscape, it's kind of being overlooked or under discussed about this? Because there are a lot of smaller storylines, details that I think could use more time or more oxygen.
I think what's being overlooked is the fact that the losses sometimes are not system-wide failures. Like, I look at the Arizona game and I first described it as maddeningly irritating because it was the same stuff, but somehow sparking optimism because it was the same guys. You know, Vidarian Lowe, Layden Robinson, and Ben Brown hijacked the Patriots' start. Had there not been a Layden Robinson hold, the Patriots were marching down the field doing fine. Had it not been Vidarian Lowe, who we've seen be guilty of this stuff before, they might not have had to punt on the second drive. Had they not had a center that they plucked, and God bless him, he's done okay, then they got that playoff on third down, and Drake May has a completion. So it's individuals. Had Kayshon Boutte not lateraled to an Arizona Cardinal after he made a reception, then maybe they go down. Had Alex Van Pelt been aggressive when the team was down, what was it, 23-16 or 30-16 at the time, whatever it was, and got Drake May on the edge and they picked up that fourth down? All of those things, all those what ifs, and we've been what ifing all year. But what I'm trying to say is, if you can fix it with those things, I think that is flying under the radar, that it is not 40-0 on a regular basis. And that 11 of the friggin' guys, show me a guy on defense that you haven't seen play well. Peppers, Duggar, Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones. I've seen Jelani Tavai play well. I've seen Wise, Barmore, Jennings. I've seen them all play well. I've seen Bentley play well. He's not here. I mean, I've seen them all play well. That's why I keep looking at the defense and going, yeah, it's more alarming than the offense, because I've seen them do it. I know Ben Brown can't. I know Vidarian can't. I know Devontae Jacobs can't. So I'm going on here, and you want to keep it quick, which I don't blame you. It's always more listenable when you do, but I'll let you jump in and fix me.
I mean, that tees me up perfectly, because my answer, you talk about the different storylines. I've been alluding to this and alluding because I just don't have the hard reporting, and I don't even know if it's available. Like, staff changes are coming. That's what happens with bad teams. It's what happens when you have a new head coach with new assistants. You learn how you work together, how you are in the hard times. There's just these disagreements, and you're running out the clock. You're all doing your jobs. But, like, that's what happens in the NFL. Staffs change every single year, winning or losing, but especially when you're rebuilding and losing and new and experienced. Defensively, though, is not where I expected that to happen. Like, they brought on 2 new guys plus Dante Hightower. Okay, Drew Wilkins, outside linebackers coach, and Jerry Montgomery, the defensive line coach. And I look at those positions and go, this is falling apart. Like there is a system failure. It's just not from the top down. It's on the defensive side of the locker room. It's in the defensive meetings. And DeMarcus Covington, who our pal Mike Giardi has been all over more than I think most, and I think fairly so, has to answer for numbers like 30th by DVOA, 30th in EPA per play, bottom 5-6 in points per drive allowed. And Jerod obviously figures into that, but I remember reporting very early, like, hey, Covington's running the meetings. Mayo will pop in and kind of do what Bill says is like, I envision the game going this way. This is how we need to play, but I'm going to let you do your jobs. And they're close. And Covington's been a good coach, but the coaching, the systemic failure to your point of like, guys have played well in spurts and I know what they have. A lot of those guys could start in other teams, but they're all starting on this one, and it's one of the worst defenses in the league.
They don't have any of that on offense, too, Andrew. Think about it. How many guys could start elsewhere? Maybe Hunter Henry, maybe Demario Douglas will be on a 3-receiver package. Stevenson might be better than
Drake.
All but 12, 14 of the backs in the league. But it's not an overwhelming. You don't have anybody who's like, that guy's a layup starter all across the league. And nobody on their offensive line except Nwenu. None of their receivers, perhaps. So it's May certainly, but you know what I'm saying? It's like we've looked at this and we looked at the wide receiver group and we've said for years, none of those guys could start elsewhere. On the defensive side, you got a lot of guys who could play. That's why I think it's not as dire as people imagine. And it's pretty friggin' dire 3-11 with the buzzards circling and the roadkill continuing to be chewed on by, the crows every single day. And the dysfunction that is seeping is significant just because it feeds on itself.
Okay, it's been a long Patriots season. We all know that. But I am telling you, regardless of how the Patriots do in their last couple of games, we've saved the best for last thanks to PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and specifically Pickmas. Yes, you heard that right. Pickmas, where you can win up to not 100, not 200, not 500, but 1,000 times your cash. You know the deal. All you have to pick is more or less on at least 2 players in a lineup for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. I played this NBA. I played this MLB. I don't like doing it for football, but we hand out football picks in this podcast every single week, so it's really this easy. Listen to this podcast. Download the PrizePicks app. Create an account. Build a lineup between 2 and 6 players. They all come with stats. If you like them more, hit more. If you think it'll be less in their next game, hit less. And that's it. And you, again, can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Make your holidays bigger and better with PrizePicks, the best place to get real money action as you watch your favorite sports. And we got a lot of them, folks, coming up on the holidays. If you don't want to chat with your family, just download PrizePicks, watch some sports, and again, win up to 1,000 times your cash. Get it out with Venmo, MasterCard, whatever you want to do. Just join now because this holiday season, PrizePicks is giving away $30+ million in rewards. Again, Pickmas, how great is that? And when you sign up today, you will get a $50 bonus instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus, 50. All you have to do is play a $5 lineup, and that's it. So download the app today. Use code CLNS. Again, CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Right. You came on my first ever episode of this podcast. It was a pod warming party. And God bless you, because this ended up making, I think, BST that night. It was a story about Joe Judge at the time, the receivers coach back in 2019, not getting along with a certain veteran who said, you just don't know what you're talking about. I bring that up to say, A, thank you again. B, I think you will probably hear similar stories come out after the season. And I'll leave it at that. Certain positions just need to be obvious. And that, again, leads to changes. But I'm more curious about the defensive side because from your perspective, no reporting on this, what do you think Mayo's stomach would be for we talk about the defense as being a bigger issue, certainly with coaching and firing guys, or it's hard to see Hightower, it's hard to see Covington. Maybe the outside guys I just mentioned, Drew Wilkins and Jerry Montgomery, but like it's not like their positions have been the only bad positions this year.
So what would his stomach be for moving on from people he's close to?
Parting with those assistants he've either played with, coached with, or been together for at least the last 5-6 years.
I don't really have a feel for that. I would say that he should be able to be cutthroat if he needs to be, having been in business, should enlighten him as to the ruthlessness that is necessary to succeed. it's different in football because it is about relationships and it is about getting people to sacrifice for you. And if you recruit somebody to coach for you and then say, you sucked, you're gone, it does feed the opportunity for those guys in a very public profession to say, you know what, I got fired, but he didn't know what he's doing. And then you have that going on. So you have to tread carefully, I think, with the decisions that you make. But you can't be hiring head coaches who are going to be sentimental if the team doesn't perform. You just can't do it. And if they did hire Jerod and didn't vet that you will have the balls to fire somebody or demote them if they're not working out, you're going to be able to do that? And if he goes, no, look, how many coaches, head coaches, have we seen go down with their coordinators or coaches? I'm not firing that guy. All right, well, your team stinks. We're going to have to do it. Now, if the team is good and it's a 10-7 team, and they say you're going to fire your wide receivers coach, and you're like, I'm not doing that. He wasn't bad this year. That's different.
Yeah.
Everybody, and that includes Jerod, should be worried for their job over the last 3 games. Again, I'm fairly certain he's not going anywhere. But that doesn't mean you have free reign to coach in any fashion you like or to put any product out there you like, which he knows.
Right. And that's the interesting part to me too, because, sentimentality or relationships, and he and Covington share an agent and obviously go way back, and Covington was going to be the DC as soon as Bill was gone. Like, they go through the process and that happens. But if you look at Mayo, you could certainly argue, and I would be on this side, as bad as it's been, he got a raw deal if he's fired after year 1. Alex Van Pelt, he gets fired after year 1, regardless of whatever notes we're taking or not taking up in the owner's box. If he gets fired, I think it's a raw deal. You develop the rookie quarterback, you establish some kind of culture. You've been honest and open and a good representation at the podium for your offense. You also have a lot less talent on offense, as we just documented. DeMarcus Covington, I don't think would be getting a raw deal. It's been that bad. Bottom 3 in the league, even if he's got the grace of a first-year coordinator or head coach, because we knew what this defense was last year, and it's not a copy and paste, but it's close enough. Like, could we at least get to 20? Is that too much to ask in these rankings?
The ironic thing about the Van Pelt v. Covington conversation is that they wanted Covington, coveted Covington, but they didn't want Van Pelt. And the guy that they didn't want, who was their literal 12th choice in Van Pelt, is performing better than the guy that they that they selected, that they had pined to elevate. So while on the face of it, you look and say, well, how can you do that? And I've said the same thing. He's done the number one thing, which was develop the quarterback. The quarterback is an affinity for him. He's been an adult in the room in so many ways. Yeah, he, gets stage fright when he gets into 3rd and 4th and short with, when he should be way more aggressive. But everything else has been really, really good, especially with the chicken poop in front of him that he's tried to make into some level of chicken salad. So to me, I look at it and say, he has done fine. But if you hired him saying to yourself the whole time, well, if something better comes open, it's like when I applied to colleges and I wanted to get into, my brother was already at St. Anselm, right? And at that time, you didn't go applying all over the friggin' country. You just applied to, what was close by. My parents wanted me to go to Catholic college. Went to Silver Lake Regional High School. They go, I'd like to see you go to Catholic college. Applied to Fairfield, didn't get in. Applied to Marist in Poughkeepsie, New York. I didn't like it. Applied to Bridgewater State, got in, but I wanted to go. I said, all right, I'll just go to St. A's. And if I don't like it after a year, I'll transfer someplace else. I liked it. I stayed. But I think that when you signed up for Alex Van Pelt, you were signing up for him the way I was signing up for St. A's. I had a great friggin' time. I'm not going to go. I don't know if the Patriots having a great friggin' time or they think they can have a better time over at Marist.
Yeah, and look, Alex Van Pelt getting a raw deal is not a reason.
Was that a stupid anecdote? I thought that was a good.
I enjoyed it. I didn't know you even had a brother, so I was learning and smiling over here.
Oh, Snake, yeah, Snake.
Let's have him on next time.
Oh, he'd be great.
Good,
very entertaining person.
But to the point of saying Alex Van Pelt here, to merge the two together, like him getting a raw deal is not a reason not to fire someone in the NFL. It happens every single year, and you can make a good case to say, hey, look, he did most of what we asked him to do. We gave him nothing with which to work. But if he developed Drake May and we feel confident in that, well, then that's the time to move on also. Like Josh McDaniels is still local, or pick your favorite offensive coordinator who might be interested in coming here, which is the other flip side of, okay, we moved on from Alex Van Pelt. Who are you pulling here to work with potentially a lame duck head coach? That's a whole other problem. Mm-hmm. But like, okay, Drake May knows how to drop back from under center. He knows how to keep his footwork and tie it to his reads when he's going through any kind of progression. Great. He can now work in any kind of system. I just think the better case for firing one or both of the coordinators is clearly with Covington, and also just might be the harder sell internally for the people that have to pull the trigger.
Yeah, which is really the irony in all of it. The guy who's done better is the guy that they would have a harder time moving on. Excuse me, the guy who's done worse is the guy that would be more wrenching for them to move on from. The guy who's done better is the one who people might be able to say, yeah, but, what's he done? I mean, that's the interesting thing about Van Pelt, and that would be the really the way it would be spun is he's done a great job developing him, but who has he ever taken to the next level?
Yes.
Who has he ever worked with in playoff situations? Who has he ever worked with that was developed from scratch into an NFL starter and performed at a high level and played in playoff games? And you look at, say, Daboll with Josh Allen. Daboll is excused from his job in New York. You look at Josh with whether it be Jimmy or, he goes on and performs and plays in the Super Bowl for San Francisco, goddamn blank. Or the time he spent with Brady, he's coached in high leverage games. So
Castle, obviously, yeah.
Yeah, you look at those and you say, okay, well, yeah, Alex got us this far, but we have to get over into the left lane now and start going 85, and I don't know if he can drive that fast. So that would be your fail-safe if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, bottom line, coaches, and this is the old Chris Rock line about, I think, men in general, only as faithful as your options. So if there's an 8, 9 out there as an offensive coordinator, I think Alex Van Pelt, we can settle, was probably a 6 or 7 out of 10 choice when it was made. And I said this schematically, like the bones of this offense are old. They're static. They're like actual West Coast stuff versus some of the motions and stuff that have evolved since then with the Shanahan stuff. But the drills behind it work. It's just schematically, it's not going to take you to the next level, but they just need to get off of the ground. They need to do the opposite of what we've been doing here, which is make a leap as opposed to pulling people and put them on the ground. All right, I want to talk Mike Vrabel here within a second because you were quoted yesterday on TV saying he is interested in the job. But at first, I want to take you back 10 years. January 2015. I am standing in some 300 section of Gillette Stadium. This is my last game attended as a fan. I was making $25,000. I spent something like $500-$600 on a ticket. This was a lot. That was grocery for one particular month. And I was covering high schools in Connecticut, then moved to Pennsylvania. But I bring this up because if I didn't have to spend $500-$600, I wouldn't have, because I like to, I don't know about you, Tom, spend as little as possible when I'm going to concerts or shows or especially games. And you can do this now with GameTime. And I would encourage you to do this, having already used their promo code. And I still go to GameTime where you can get money off. I'll tell you in a second, because they have a lowest price guarantee. And that's all that matters. So whether you're going to concerts, shows, games, or getting tickets for loved ones at the holidays, go to GameTime for the lowest price guarantee. You'll get 110% of the credit back. If you find a lower price elsewhere, you'll also find all-in pricing. Fees, all of them added in. One price right up front. You get great deals with GameTime picks, everything, plus your seat view. You can find out wherever I sat, like section 310, row 26, seat whatever, at Gillette Stadium or elsewhere. So go to GameTime right now, download the GameTime app, create an account, use promo code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, download the GameTime app today for the lowest price tickets anywhere. Create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. What time is it? GameTime. All right, Mike Vrabel. I hope.
Great read.
Thank you, sir. Had a lot of practice.
Read.
Okay, so here's a quote. This is tweeted by Nick Cattles yesterday. Your appearance on Early Edition, which had been known to make some waves. Quote, Mike Vrabel would be interested in coaching the New England Patriots. I think he, meaning Vrabel, looks at the Patriots and despite the warts, says, I'll go there. What, Tommy, can you tell us about that?
This began to germinate on Sunday when Albert Breer, after the game, started talking about, okay, if you're going to move on from Jerod Mayo, this would be your one chance to get Mike Vrabel because he's available. There are openings around the NFL right now, 3 of them. He will be high on everyone's list. So Breer saying that, and then again, as we spoke about it on Early Edition, he spoke about Vrabel and whether or not he would pull the trigger and move on from Mayo to Vrabel. I've known Mike for a long, long time. I would say that we are friends, respectfully professional friends, and I know how he feels about this organization and always has felt about it. And even when he was up here last year, he expressed his interest, I think, in always being a part of it. Speaks of this team as a we, probably the same way he does about Ohio State. So unless things have drastically changed in the recent past, Mike Vrabel would be certainly interested in coaching the New England Patriots, from what I know. That doesn't mean that he would be interested exclusively in them or above the Bears, Jaguars, or Saints. I just know that Mike's affinity for the New England Patriots over the years is such that I think he would have no compunctions about if there was an opportunity here to come and coach. But again, that wasn't necessarily something that was told to me as in, hey, we're thinking of this. Would Vrabel want to do it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, and that leads to my next question, which is how significant is that? It's significant enough if you're running a radio show and doing it for 4 hours, and what would it look like? Who would be this OC and jump like 10 miles down the road? But we're not jumping anywhere. Our feet are on the ground, as I said at the start of this podcast. So as far as ownership, does that matter to them that they've certainly at least heard that or known that Mike Vrabel's interested? Because then they, of course, have to ask themselves, do I like what I have in my left hand with Jerod Mayo, what I know in the state of the franchise and what I believe in? Or do I like what I could reach out for, being old number 50, but good run with the Titans, still a winning record? Do I want to be able to compare and contrast at the same time, or do they bother to even reach out to Mike?
It'll be interesting to find out. I mean, I think the significance of it is if you have the one candidate who would energize your fan base, who has been a part of multiple Super Bowl wins, who has had experience elsewhere, who knows the nooks and crannies of coaching GM relationships in a way that unfortunately Jerod just doesn't know yet, then it has to appeal a great deal to you because you have love and respect for the guys in your friggin' Hall of Fame. So I think it would give you pause the same way it would give someone pause if, I don't know, it's the night before your wedding and you're standing there and there's the girl you've pined for forever just standing there and she doesn't, am I doing the right thing here? Because I'm never going to have another shot. I didn't feel that way, by the way. I knew what I was doing. And the night before my wedding was the OJ chase. Be that as it may. Yeah. But I think that it would give them pause. Do we want to continue? Are we sure that this is what we want to do going forward with Jerod? Because Mike's going to go someplace else. Who else would there be other than Mike Vrabel that the Patriots would have an affinity for? Can you name one guy?
Not as much as Mike. And I think not in a way that complicates their decision now that Vrabel would, for all the reasons you just mentioned. Like you say Ben Johnson, okay? Everyone's favorite new hotshot coordinator.
Exactly. What's he know about anything?
Right. It's theoretical.
Again, I don't know Ben. I wouldn't know him if he walked into the room,
But you get these guys every single year, and it's not to discount them. Sometimes it's Sean McVay. Sometimes it's Kyle Shanahan. Other times it's Dave Canales. So actually, it hasn't been that bad in Carolina. But the point is, Mike Vrabel's a known commodity. I've seen him do it. I would bet he's better at it than he was in Tennessee, where he gets to an AFC championship game and another year has a number 1 seed. Okay, he came in here, ended the dynasty on his terms. Those are tough teams. He also knows how to pick offensive coordinators. And I think that leads to the most interesting point about this is not only could Mike come in and probably just kind of bring the level up a little bit. Okay. Whatever your floor is with Jerod, it's going to be higher with Mike, but his network of coaching, where I think that's killing the Patriots right now, where you look again, the receivers, like Tyler Hughes wasn't good enough to be a receivers coach at Washington last year. He wasn't good enough to have a position coach under Bill for 3 years here. It's not an issue with Mike Vrabel, who hired Arthur Smith and Matt LaFleur. And so it's not only just Mike versus Jerod. It's what are the staffs that they can bring with them and their experience, stuff that Jerod just can't do right now because those only come with time.
Right. And it goes back to, again, if it was a clean slate last year, and if the Patriots hadn't unexpectedly gone 4-13, and if the timeline hadn't been moved up, and if all things were equal, what would the Crafts have done last year? Did they feel indebted to Jerod, or indebted isn't the right word, or just felt, we'll use indebted for lack of a better word. Did they feel that they were obligated to Jerod because of what they had contractually put into his contract, which was reportedly a $10 million buyout, if indeed he wasn't made the head coach? Bill was making $25 million a year or so. So you had to pay Bill most likely at least a portion of that 25 when you moved on from him. If you had to pay Jerod 10 to not coach, and then something to somebody else to coach, then the tab was going to run up. You still, after a year or two, going to be clear of Bill, clear of whatever payout there was to Jerod, and you would have the coach that you perhaps preferred to hire if everything was equal. So again, that's why when we realistically and objectively follow the breadcrumbs and see where they led to, and people are like, well, I should have hired Vrabel. There was more going on. It wasn't that friggin' easy. It was the greatest coach of all time.
Yeah.
And Vrabel was unexpectedly fired, remember?
Yep.
Right after the season. No one saw Vrabel getting fired. So it is a very unique situation, I think, that individual is available now, and he won't be soon down the road.
Yeah. All right, let's pivot back to the Patriots. They have 3 games left. You had to sit down with Jerod over the bye week. Anyone who's not watched or listened to that, I would highly encourage you to do so. Let's say you get to sit down again tomorrow, just 15, 20 minutes over the phone in his office, whatever it is. He's asking you for advice. Okay. How do I stabilize the ship, sail smoothly into the offseason? Your answer is what?
I would embrace the idea of a football overlord, which I'm sure he never would. But I talked to Scott Pioli about this on the pod, and I thought it was really smart, and it's really kind of my thing today, is Mayo's new, Wolf is new, Covington's new, Van Pelt's never been a play caller. The Patriots personnel has been so friggin' bad. Their free agent signings have been so friggin' bad that if the Crafts want this group to work, they haven't really indicated that they are adept, and it might be because of inexperience. But what the Crafts need is to get somebody between them and the coaching staff. And maybe Mayo says, look, Robert, Jonathan, the camera was on you guys taking notes, and I know that you guys don't come down here and say we have to draft a tackle, or that we have to take Will Campbell, or that we got to start running more spread. You don't do that, but you do hold my feet to the fire afterwards. So instead of coming to me or Elliot, why don't we add somebody who's got some friggin' experience as a football overlord? And he can audit Elliott, and he can audit me. I welcome it. And he can maybe work the network to help some of these assistant coaches. And he can say, that guy sucks. I don't like his attitude. Move on from him. Phil Perry and I had a long conversation about this. He didn't agree with it. I think that it's a unique situation. If you look at Bill Belichick and say, well, that was a football overlord and they chased his ass out. He was spread too thin. He was trying to actually do the jobs of Wolf and Mayo and Grow and whoever the offensive line coach is, Scott Peters. This person will be overseeing it. Does it work? Tom Coughlin got the Jaguars in 2017 to the AFC Championship game. Should have been in the Super Bowl against the Eagles.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a bad situation. Would I prescribe it in every one? Would I prescribe it to another coach? No, but I would say to Jerod, and I've totally morphed this question that you asked me into my own answer.
Okay, that's what we do. It's where we have the space. You and I can go as long as we want, talk about whatever we want.
Okay,
I'm with Phil on this. I'm also a little bit surprised that maybe this is just Scott's vocabulary leadings. We didn't use the word czar. We love the word czar when it's at the top. The only time we use it, overlord of like an entire football operation, or some would say border. But I would like to split the difference and go more consultant. And like I think one example of this, where it's not all-encompassing power, but like Mike Holmgren did this for a while in Cleveland. That's an organization that needed a guy like Mike Holmgren, okay? A sounding board for ownership. Jerod doesn't report to them. Elliott doesn't report to them. But like that guy is there to be both the Jim Caldwell for the coaching staff and say Ron Wolfe was still around and interested for the scouting department. Because all that and experience, I think, has fostered a lot of their issues this year, which, of course, are cured with time. But that's kind of the bitch of it. You might not have that time to figure it out and to be able to grow and do this. What are you looking for at these last 3 games besides winning and progress and like all the obvious stuff?
Wish list?
No, not a wish list. Like this.
No. I'm going to do a wish list.
Oh, come on! You just took the last question and ran with it. Give me like a silent barometer or things that you think will be more telling besides the scoreboard and again the kind of performance on the field, which is obvious. Mine would be body language. I want to see how guys are reacting on the sideline in the locker room afterward.
Yeah, I think that's a great barometer, and I think Drake May's tone is a great indicator because you've got a guy who is like a puppy. He was wiggling all over for weeks. And then Sunday's game was the first time I saw him a little bit downcast. It's like, wow, we really do suck, huh? So that would be one thing that I will gauge. I'll also gauge simple penalties. Can you stay at 5 or less in every game? Ideally, you want to be 2 for 10. But can you stay 5 or less in every game? That to me is a good indication. Run defense will be a great indicator, I think, Andrew, and I think you'll agree with that because we've talked about it. They have the players. So sometimes when the run defense sucks, it's not because you're not trying. It's because you're trying to do it yourself. And you're cheating the scheme. And you're like, Peppers came up too fast. He wanted to blow James Conner up instead of breaking down, getting there in, a normal fashion. And he was trying to just drill him. And he got the wrong angle. So those are 3 key things: penalties, body language of May and tone of May, and run defense.
Yeah. The run defense is a great point, and not in the sense of you got to stop the run to win the game, but in the sense that you just hit on, where like that is a collective effort. Okay. In the same way with pass protection, like you need to all lean on each other's leverage or trust in those assignments. And how long have we heard this year of like guys are being too selfish, guys are out of their gaps, we need to play more together over and over and over again. I think that is honestly a little bit reflective of the culture, which has a harder barometer, right? Are guys laughing in the locker room? Some people like to do that. I reported on it once. I don't think it was a huge deal, but it happened and it had my attention. Body language is another barometer. What are you saying to the media? Kayshon Boutte still lighting up his coaching. Oh, I'll be better. If they cut all that crap out, let's just call it crap. The body language, the post-game quotes, and the idea that they're not trying to do too much. Even if you're losing together in the media and on the field, that matters. Because right now, I don't think they're doing that. And that would be a sign, as much as they want to talk about rallying around Mayo, that they're actually doing it.
Yeah, and that allows us to be less fanatical, strident, emotional about trying to figure out what they should do going forward or whatever. It's just, again, that Arizona game and the post game, the Jacksonville game, the Houston game, the Niners game, the Jets game, the first one. Yeah. They all stick out like sore thumbs, and that's a lot of friggin' thumbs.
See your doctor with that many thumbs. Forget that they're sore.
Arizona was your best chance to put your best foot forward and have people say, well, at least they showed up against Arizona. Now you're trying to put your best foot forward against 3 teams that are hammering feet on a regular basis.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate your time here on a Wednesday. For those who listen regularly, we'll be back at the end of the week. Some preview stuff, are normally scheduled podcasting, content, mailbag, everything good. And then I will have one episode next week, which I'll remind you later on Friday. We'll have another guest. In the meantime, Tommy Curran, no one better on ownership, big picture decisions, some perspective, and a lot of fun with my guy. Hopefully see you over at your place here soon, all right?
I'd love that, Andrew. Goodbye.
Goodbye.